Hey everyone, my name is Mindy. Welcome to Adventures for the Curious. I know it's been a while since my last video, and I apologize for that, as I've been busy with the gold ticket treasure hunt. But as this year our hunts will be more spread out, I'm optimistic that I will have more time to devote to my channel, which is also very important to me. So please, if you haven't already done so, hit the like and subscribe button, and click the notifications button so you will know the minute my new videos are released. These are very troubling times in the United States. COVID-19 is taking thousands of lives, both young and old, every day. Televisions are broadcasting hours and hours of violence, unrest, and turbulent division. When I watch the news, I am deeply disturbed by what I see. I see rioters attacking the Capitol, and horrific images of violence. During one of those broadcasts, I thought of a quote by Mr. Fred Rogers. He addressed violence in one of his programs, and this is what he said.
There are people in the world who are so sick or so angry that they sometimes hurt other people, and they're usually the ones who end up in the news. When I was a boy and I would hear about something scary, somebody getting badly hurt or something like that, I'd ask my parents or my grandparents about it. In fact, my mother would try to find out who was helping the person who got hurt. Always look for the people who are helping, she'd tell us. You'll always find somebody who's trying to help. So even today, when I read the newspaper and see the news on television, I look for the people who are trying to help.
In almost every American tragedy I can remember, from the attacks on 9/11 to the most violent natural disasters, I saw a lot of people helping. But man, as I watched the violence play out at the Capitol, I didn't see much helping at all. And that's what disturbed me the most. Let's take a brief look. And if I'm disturbed by what I've seen, how much more so are the children? How often are they forgotten as we switch on CNN or Fox News to see the endless replays? What kind of damage do those violent replays do to our most innocent and vulnerable citizens? As I thought about that, I realized something I haven't thought of in a long while. I miss Mr. Rogers. If any philosophy mattered the most in our world today, it would be the philosophy of Mr. Rogers. Maybe we could all learn exactly how to accept people for the way they are, how to forgive, and how to be a better person if we all heeded the very important words of the man who became a larger-than-life superhero in the eyes of countless, but apparently not enough, Americans. So, today my goal is to honor Mr. Rogers' memory while at the same time reinforcing his timeless wisdom. Are you ready? I am. Let's go. Mr. Rogers was smart. He studied at Dartmouth, then attended Rollins College. He received a BA in music composition and after that went on to graduate from the Pittsburgh Theological Seminary and became an ordained minister. But the idea of preaching in a church didn't appeal to him. He knew his calling was a much broader audience, the children of the world, and he immediately realized there was potential in a newfangled invention making waves in America, the television. For a while, he was employed with NBC, doing work for music shows like Your Hit Parade, but found the network's reliance on advertising undermined his goal of teaching children. He quit NBC and started his lifelong journey with public television. Mr. Rogers was creative as heck. He loved puppets and created many of his most memorable puppets and personalities, such as King Friday the 13th, Queen Sarah Saturday, and Daniel Striped Tiger. He created an alternate universe of castles and trees and trolley cars that became a safe place for children all over the nation. He also composed and wrote all the music on his show. He didn't rely on writers or set designers. He did it all himself. Mr. Rogers soon became one of the most beloved TV personalities of all time and captured the hearts of millions of children. Maybe this photo is a little foreshadowing of just how much larger than life he would become. If it's even possible, Mr. Rogers' legend has only grown since his passing away from stomach cancer in 2003. Mr. Rogers was a powerful influence to adults as well as to children. He was no pretender. He was the same person off the show as he was on the show. To Mr. Rogers, it didn't matter who they thought he was. It mattered who he was, and he was who he was, like it or not. And I think I could say with some certainty, most people liked who he was. And although he was on TV, he was no actor. I think kids could see that, and it was one of the reasons he became so popular. He said, "One of the greatest gifts you can give anybody is the gift of your honest self." I also believe that kids can spot a phony a mile away. Many adults were also able to sense that Mr. Rogers was nothing but the real deal and practiced what he preached. On May 1st, 1969, Fred Rogers testified before the Senate Committee on Commerce Subcommittee on That's a mouthful, let me try that again. On May 1st, 1969, Fred Rogers testified before the Senate Committee on Commerce Subcommittee on Communications to defend $20 million in federal funding proposed for the Nonprofit Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which was at risk of being reduced to $10 million. Subcommittee Chairman Senator John Pastore wasn't familiar with Mr. Rogers and had never seen one of his programs. Senator Pastore is initially sort of terse toward Mr. Rogers, but over the course of Rogers' brief 6 minutes of testimony, Pastore's demeanor quickly transitions to one of awe and admiration. Mr. Rogers' impassioned plea even gave Senator Pastore goosebumps.
And this is what I give. I give an expression of care every day to each child, to help him realize that he is unique. I end the program by saying, you've made this day a special day by just your being you. There's no person in the whole world like you, and I like you just the way you are. I'm the host, yes, and I do all the puppets, and I write all the music, and I write all the scripts.
Well, I'm supposed to be a pretty tough guy, and this is the first time I've had goosebumps for the last 2 days.
Could I tell you the words of one of the songs which I feel is very important?
Yes.
What do you do with the mad that you feel? When you feel so mad you could bite. When the whole wide world seems oh so wrong, and nothing you do seems very right. What do you do? Do you punch a bag? Do you pound some clay or some dough? Do you round up friends for a game of tag or see how fast you go? It's great to be able to stop when you've planned a thing that's wrong and be able to do something else instead and think this song. I can stop when I want to, can stop when I wish, can stop, stop, stop anytime. And what a good feeling to feel like this and know that the feeling is really mine. Know that there's something deep inside that helps us become what we can. For a girl can be someday a lady, and a boy can be someday a man.
I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful. Looks like you just earned the $20 million.
Not only did Mr. Rogers save public broadcasting that day, but he also gained an additional $2 million in funding, raising federal funding from $20 to $22 million. Mr. Rogers never sought publicity or media attention. When Beth Usher was a child suffering over 100 seizures a day, she never could have known how Mr. Rogers could help her. But when her mother turned on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood one day, Beth was fascinated and enchanted with the program. Beth's mother, though, was amazed because while her daughter watched, she didn't suffer even one seizure. Mr. Rogers and his magically simple neighborhood were God sent. Eventually, Beth was diagnosed with a rare brain disorder called Rasmussen's encephalitis. This disorder required radical surgery that was still new in the world of medicine. Beth's mom called the TV studio, hoping Mr. Rogers could send her an autographed photo that would help ease Beth's apprehension over the upcoming surgery. But Beth and her mom had no idea that Mr. Rogers would come through. Okay, so if you hear this gnawing in the background, it's Cashy. He picked up a bone from outside and brought it in, and I can't get him to stop, so we're just gonna go with it. Except now he's starting to play with it. Oh, brother. Okay, back to the story. But Beth and her mom had no idea that Mr. Rogers would come through for them in an awesome way. Before her surgery, Beth's mother answered the phone and then told Beth a friend was on the line and wanted to speak to her. Beth looked at the phone, a little puzzled, because it was hard to make and maintain friendships due to the severity of her seizures. She took the phone and said, "Hello?" She immediately relaxed when she heard her friend, Mr. Rogers, on the other side. He asked her about her surgery, and then they proceeded to speak about many things for nearly an hour. But Mr. Rogers' kindness didn't end there. He sent pre-recorded tapes for the family to listen to during their 7-hour drive to the hospital. Those tapes helped not just Beth, but her mother as well. Beth's surgery went well, but she still slipped into a coma shortly afterwards. Mr. Rogers called every day to monitor her progress. As an ordained Presbyterian minister, I have no doubt Mr. Rogers was fervently praying for his friend to recover. Mr. Rogers kept all this interaction from the world. One day, he asked if he could come visit Beth in the hospital. Beth's mother was unsure because Beth was still in a coma and wouldn't know he was there. Mr. Rogers said he'd like to come anyway, but didn't want the press to find out. He wanted to have some time with Beth, away from the cameras and media attention. After spending an hour putting on a puppet show with all of Beth's favorite characters from the program, with Beth the star of it all, Mr. Rogers spent time encouraging the family. He left all the puppets for Beth to find when she finally woke up. And she did wake up about 2 weeks later. Mr. Rogers and Beth remained friends, exchanging many conversations until Fred Rogers' death in 2003. Monetary wealth was not the motivation for Mr. Rogers' television career. If only all celebrities shared Mr. Rogers' motivation of helping children by being an example they could follow, the world would be a better and different place, wouldn't it? Mr. Rogers never pitched any product during his career, and he chose to broadcast on public television because he knew his show would not be interrupted by advertising. He created his own brand, a brand he would never sell. His trademark sweaters were all knitted by his mother. And to quell a common myth, he didn't wear long sleeves to hide his tattoos. He didn't have any tattoos anywhere on his body. I'm not saying it's wrong to have tattoos, but misrepresenting someone in that way is sort of like gossipy and just wrong. And misrepresenting people is not a trait Mr. Rogers would approve of. Maybe we should all think long and hard before we spread gossip and rumor. I know if we all did that, the world would be a better place. Mr. Rogers embraced the philosophy of simplicity. Every show began and ended the same way. It was predictable in a way kids found relaxing and comforting. You could count on the fish, Fennel and Frida, always getting fed. There was always a trip to make-believe land. And Mr. Rogers even introduced the ideas of some of today's popular shows like How It's Made. Yet, despite its simplicity, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood helped children understand deep and complex emotions and situations in a safe, comforting environment. Every viewer was important to Mr. Rogers. He answered all of his fan mail personally. Once, he received a letter from a blind little girl that read, "Dear Mr. Rogers, please say when you are feeding your fish because I worry about them. I can't see if you are feeding them, so please say you are feeding them out loud." Never one to disappoint a child. From then on, Mr. Rogers always said out loud,
Need to feed the fish right away. There. I have some friends who get very concerned when I forget the fish during our visits. Well, I just wanted you to know that even if I forget to feed them when we're together, I come back later and feed them, so they're always taken care of.
Even animals loved Mr. Rogers. Coco, the famous gorilla who was taught to communicate with sign language, was an avid viewer of the show and possibly Mr. Rogers' #1 fan. When Mr. Rogers visited the massive gorilla, Coco immediately wrapped her arms around him, then proceeded to help him take off his shoes, just as he did on every episode of the show. He then had this heartwarming exchange with the huge animal.
Love you.
Oh, is that?
Said,
Oh.
love you, visit love.
Oh,
Well, that was very nice.
thank you, Coco.
She loves her visitor.
Mr. Rogers kept his weight at his favorite number, 143, for 30 years. Can you imagine the personal discipline this required? He swam laps every day, didn't eat anything that had a mother, and didn't drink or smoke. He said 143 was significant because it was the number that represented I love you. Mr. Rogers didn't have even 1 ounce of judgment in him. Mr. Rogers appreciated everyone for just the way they were. He didn't judge, and he lived what he preached: kindness. Church leaders would often try to get him to agree on a certain theological stance or particular lifestyle, but Mr. Rogers never took the bait. His answer was always, God loves you just the way you are. How freeing that thought must have been to his viewers. One example of his amazing rapport with children was when Jeff Erlinger visited Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. Mr. Rogers asked him questions about his disability, knowing that children with disabilities are often eager to share their stories, as well as their hopes and fears. Children yearn to be accepted for who they are, and Mr. Rogers had a God-given knack for making children feel totally at ease.
It's you I like. It's not the things you wear. It's not the way you do your hair. But it's you I like. The way you are right now. The way down deep inside you. Not the things that hide you. Not your fancy chair. That's just beside you. But it's you I like. Every part of you. Your skin, your eyes, your feelings, whether old or new. I hope that you'll remember, even when you're feeling blue, that it's you I like, it's you yourself, it's you, it's you I like. And it is you I like, Jeff.
Thanks.
And there must be times when you do feel blue. I'm not feeling blue right now, though.
Me neither.
When Mr. Rogers was inducted into the TV Hall of Fame many years later, you can feel his almost tangible surprise and sheer joy at seeing Jeff Erlinger wheel onto the stage to help him celebrate his special recognition.
Please welcome Jeffrey Erlinger.
It is. I'm so glad to see you. Oh, thank you for coming. My pleasure.
Man, we can all learn something from Mr. Rogers' example, can't we? When I was growing up, admitting you watched Mr. Rogers wasn't exactly cool. But I know that many kids like myself and my 2 brothers were closet watchers of Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. So in closing, I would like to say this, and although it is too late for him to hear my words, I know he understands and would approve. Mr. Rogers, I am truly and deeply sorry for making fun of you when I was a kid. Like many adults, I look back on my childhood thoughts and actions and realize how much I didn't know and how easily I was swept along with the flow of my peers. But your kindness did influence me, and you taught me so many things I'm not ashamed to admit today. You taught me that everyone's heart is sacred ground, and I often use those words today as my personal motto. Your influence has helped shape me into the caring and kind person I am today, and I am glad for it. In retrospect, I see the immense value of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and the tremendous positive effect you had on everyone you met. Mr. Rogers, I proudly say I would be honored to be your neighbor and wish I could have told you that when you were still here. Well, I hope you all enjoyed the video and seriously consider the message I tried to convey. Today, more than ever, we need good neighbors, and we need to be good neighbors. I'll see you next time. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notifications button. Be kind to everyone. And as always, stay curious.